Racist! Fascist!
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and the rest of you. This is Jolly Scholar 888 with dispatch number 16, another Crypto Wednesday. Yeah, you're right, it's not Wednesday, but that's okay, because I'm getting there. Okay, first I want to talk about what I intend to do in the next few months, which is complete these three series, and why. The first one is the Great Awakening series, right? Why is that important? It's important because my studies with my PhD work and other work since then has revealed, but I think it's obvious to any anthropologist, that there is no culture whatsoever that was not founded upon the varieties of the religious experience. That was William James' phrase, the varieties of religious experience. I'd rather call it the varieties of the ecstatic experience, or as the biogenetic structuralism people would call it, the mystical mind, the mystic mind. Now, I know it gets a little Twilight Zone to a lot of people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think of spirituality. It doesn't matter what you think of the mystical mind, the varieties of the ecstatic experience. The fact is, all humanity, every single culture is founded upon that. The ritual system is founded upon the varieties of the religious experience, and that's where all culture comes. So why is that important to us? Because without continuity, we have nothing. Human culture at base is continuity. Without that, we don't have anything. So it doesn't matter what we do here, the year 2023, and we think we're making changes and we think we're fighting the man and blah, blah, blah. If you cannot create continuity, if you cannot establish a culture, preserve it, maintain it, and it has to be self-preserving, right? Because you're not going to be there forever. We're not going to be here even much longer. It must be self-perpetuating. That's what continuity is. And all human culture, which is to say human continuity, civilization, culture, is based upon the varieties of the ecstatic experience. There's no exceptions to that, ladies and gentlemen, so there's no use in arguing. Now, are we now creating a new culture for the first time in human history, not based on that, but based on what we call science? That's part of the discussion. It's not clear yet because no such culture has emerged yet. That's for sure. Even here in the United States or in Europe, where we think we've gone so far, have we? 50% at least of the world around us, even right here in the United States, doesn't feel that way. And also, Europe and America is exporting people by the millions who absolutely don't feel that way. So at any rate, that's why the Great Awakenings is important, because I've argued in them, as you've seen in the past videos, that these waves of spirituality is what created the American experience and the great American experiment, which is what we're living in and what many of us are trying to keep going. So why blockchain to metaverse, right? The blockchain to metaverse series, and now I'm including AI. Why? Well, as many of us are starting to believe, that it's very possible that the United States of America will be unrecognizable if it exists at all in 30 or 40 years. Right? No borders, no walls, no USA at all. That's not some little silly meme repeated by, kids in their black pajamas in the streets or at the border. No, that's very real, succinct tenet of the universities. It's fundamental to what the universities are teaching. Now, many of them won't admit this. Many of them will, because there's no consequences. They're not going to lose tenure by admitting that. No professor will lose tenure by actually professing that. However, professing the opposite, that America is worth preserving and America is the greatest experiment in human, I want to say civilization, but definitely political civilization the world's ever known, no, they could lose tenure for that. That's definite. So, blockchain to metaverse talks about the fact that technology may enable the continuation of the great American experiment that began with the American Revolution. Maybe, maybe not, but this is a thesis that I'm presenting and that I'm following. So that's why we need to finish up the Blockchain and Metaverse series and include now AI, something that I've been experimenting, as I'll talk about a little bit later. Mainly, though, I refer you to some really excellent people in those technologies for you to follow. And I've already done that. I'm talking a lot to people who are in the conservative movement that don't know much about that, people closer to my age. But even I found many people who are younger are completely oblivious to the new technologies. I was really surprised at that. So maybe my little mini courses, couldn't even call it mini courses, but introductory material may prove to be valuable even to younger people that I'm speaking to. So the third part is the techno-anarchism, the Bolt model. Can't go into the detail here, but it's going to include what constitutes a Bolt. As I said, if the United States of America fall, there's no United States of America. That doesn't mean that the American experiment has to disappear. If we can create communities who have the potential for culture, that is continuity, and they can operate under the principle of non-oppressibility. Now, what do I mean by non-oppressibility? That's something that I'll be developing with the Bolt theory. And that is, if you make it too expensive for any entity to run your community over, to take it over, use the word conquer if you like. If their anticipated gains are overrun by the losses, they'll think twice. Doesn't mean they won't try it, because maniacs will do anything. But for the most part, the best chance we have of survival is an interlocking system or networks of communities that are non-oppressible, or at least non-oppressible enough. You have to make the price of being oppressed so great that the oppressor thinks twice before doing it. I think that's the best you can expect on planet Earth. You know, this has never been a safe, nice place. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's not safe. And I've always despised people since, not people, but that term, be safe. I never heard it until after 9/11. It's the most pathetic term. Don't tell your children to be safe. Come on. Tell them to be excited. Tell them to be gallant. Tell them to be glorious. Be careful. Don't be stupid, but be safe. That's your ambition, to be safe. Please. So the principle of non-oppressibility, as I develop the Bolt model, and then I'm also getting ready to publish my black paper, which is an answer to the central bank digital currency problem, issue, monstrosity, whatever. Okay, so that's the three areas that I need to finish up my series: the Great Awakening series, Blockchain and Metaverse series to include AI, and techno-anarchism, which I'll move a lot of my video production actually into the techno-anarchist site. So today I'm going to briefly cover in today's dispatch Davos and anti-Davos. I think that's catchy enough, isn't it? So basically we're talking about producers versus parasites. The World Economic Forum uses that term stakeholders. It's the people, not the people in the Declaration of Independence, not that the people that Stalin talked about, Fidel Castro, Pol Pot, Mao Zedong. When they said the people, they meant the stupid masses that they intended to engineer. Stakeholders is the new term for the people. And once you understand it that way, then you really understand what we're talking about, who the World Economic Forum really is. I think many of you are already waking up to that. Many of you. But you need to get this out to the rest of the population. That when they say the stakeholders, stakeholder capitalism, for the benefit of the stakeholders, they mean the same term as Stalin meant when he talked about the people, or Marx talked about the people. It shows an utter contempt for the common man. The people, not as in our Declaration of Independence, which is a glorious faith in the individual. That's not what they're talking about. They are certainly not talking about a glorious faith in the individual. Now, all of you can see this, but can all of you get this message across to whoever you know, whoever's in your network of people? Remember, we need to talk to liberals. We can't just keep talking to ourselves. The liberals need to know what Davos is up to so they don't sheepishly just follow along because they'll repeat little, as Sam Bankman-Fried said, shibboleths, which somebody corrected me to what it actually means, but Maybe I'll have that discussion later. I kind of like the way that Bankman-Fried used it, even though the original term was a little bit different. Okay, so anyways, Davos and anti-Davos. Parallel economies versus aggressively retaking our institutions. This is an issue that I have with, it's not like a problem I have with anyone. I like Steve Turley's approach to parallel economies. He brought this subject up with an Eastern European philosopher writer who wrote under communism. I think talking about a parallel economy under a communist state that's already in place makes more sense, because there, the iron boot's already on your neck. So you don't really have a choice but to create, under the radar, a parallel economy. But we're not there yet here in the United States. I'm very, when Twitter banned Trump, I was furious with myself and others that we didn't have the cojones to go to the Twitter headquarters en masse, and if we had to, just wreak havoc. Let them know that they will pay a price for fucking with us. They paid nothing. No big deal. Half the country was behind Trump. And this goddamn miserable institution had the gall to do that. They shut him up, right? That was one of his big vehicles, was Twitter. They shut our president up, but we took it. That's the worst part. We actually accepted that. I mean, you got to hand it to those little, those little hyenas in their black pajamas. They would have gone out and burned some shit down and attacked some things. But no, we're too civilized. So we didn't do that. Well, then we got what we paid for. I mean, we got what we deserved. Because we have slowly lost ground in every single major institution because we haven't had the cojones to really, truly fight back aggressively. Right? That's part of the principle of non-oppressibility. They want to take over the universities? Well, we should have been there to fight them tooth and nail till they finally realized that that wasn't a great venue to follow. But as it is, there was no resistance at all. We just rolled over. There you can see it. It was under the radar. But now we're doing the same thing with our elementary schools and our secondary schools. Are we going to roll over? Are we not going to get belligerent? Because if we don't, they're just going to move right along like a little steam. They're all in place. They don't have to get our consent with this. They can just move it right along. We can scream and bitch all we like. So I am not in favor so much of going with this parallel economy. I like that we had somebody like Elon Musk rose to the occasion and said, shit, I'll do it. But, we can't rely on one person. He took over Twitter and blew the doors open. Now, as you know, I've done a video that that refers to this fellow named Irae. And I'm wondering if he is ever going to come into the forefront, because he already had exposed that the entire deep state, we call it deep state, he didn't call it that, but the entire intelligence apparatus, not just the FBI, was involved in the collusion with big tech. Most especially Twitter, but not limited to Twitter, and not limited to the FBI or even the DOJ at all, but every institution. He had already said that, and yet no one's given him credit for it. I'm kind of wondering about that. At any rate, I don't like the idea of parallel economies because it also follows the parallel cultures. Multiculturalism is a farce. That's a concept like an acid that you throw on a vibrant culture to help dissolve it. There's no such thing as multiculturalism, because culture is how humans see themselves, how they process information of the self and see themselves as human beings. You cannot have completely opposite concepts of how you see yourself as human in the same community, in the same group of people. You cannot, because continuity is what you are continuing how you see yourself as a human being. So if the cultures are just slightly different, Protestants and Catholics, something like that, and even then it's difficult enough. But when you get to the point that you have multiculturalism, as they're promoting in Europe and they're promoting here, that's a catastrophe. There's no such thing as a multiculturalist nation. Absolutely no such thing. But they pull that off. So in a way, this also works against the Davos, the Parasites, because ideologies, which is what they're promoting, they're trying to do this top down through ideology. Ideologies cannot generate culture. Therefore, they cannot achieve continuity. But what they can't do is destroy the culture at hand. And then people go through what they have to go through, which can be generations, could be, in the case of Russia, it was only one or two. In the case of China, it could be many more, because they've progressed to becoming a national socialist or Nazi state. I don't say that derogatorily. It's a national socialist nation, and it might be good for China, I don't know. But as a national socialist state, state-run capitalism, state-run religions, they have 2 or 3 religions that they, and a common, a central ethnicity of which they build their nation upon, which is the Han. Chinese communism could survive as a national socialist state. As a global communist state, of course not. That's what they're trying to do in Europe. Europe will implode. We'll talk about that more, overrunning the ethnic peoples of Europe and thinking that you're going to get this, for a better word, I don't mean to be too derogatory, but a kind of mongrelized people, let's say a goulash, that will have no identity, no sense of self, no past, no future. And therefore, they will derive their identity solely from the socialist state. It could work for a little while, but the fact is, again, religion will come up. The ecstatic experience is rooted in the body. I've talked about that with the principle of biogenetic structuralism. I don't want to get ahead of myself. When we finish up the Great Awakenings, we will lead exactly to that. So that's the only thing we can say about the parallel cultures, that they won't work. Right? They won't work because the top culture is ideological, and that cannot sustain itself. So it'll implode anyways. But parallel economies, I don't think so. I think we should aggressively be involved in aggressively retaking our institutions. And this is again goes back to the very top little line I have up there: producers versus parasites. The people, the producers of the world, are the ones that want to go about their business and make a better world for their children, for their family, for their community. And unfortunately, we inevitably breed a layer of parasites that produce nothing. And this is what you see at the World Economic Forum. An entire society of fabulously wealthy and powerful parasites who produce and make nothing. Yet they want to engineer the rest of us, all the people that do produce. And what will happen is they'll engineer those people into, they'll decimate their ability to produce, that's socialism in a nutshell right there. They kill off the people, the producers. They completely destroy any initiative, any incentive to produce anything. And they suck them up into the government because they have to surveil the rest of the producers. Anyways, we don't want to go into that too much, so let's move on. Now, my first step here is with Altcoin Daily. I've referred to them before. And they bring up, the guy's Austin, and he has a brother. But I recommend them for knowledge about concerning anything to do with the new technologies of blockchain. But specifically those who want to look at the altcoins, that is not Bitcoin, not really even Ethereum too much, although Ethereum is the kind of mother of all the altcoins. I look at it as if you talk about digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin is the father of all digital projects, all blockchain projects, and Ethereum is kind of like the mother, which between the two concepts, they have bred all these altcoins. It's a whole plethora growing all the time. For altcoin knowledge, I do recommend Altcoin Daily. So let's go to this. Central regulation versus absolutely no regulation. I'm for absolutely none. It's my position. I'm going to argue it. I'm not saying it's definitely completely right, but that's what I'm going to argue for until I see otherwise. So they bring up this simple fact. The Gensler and the gang, and we've talked about them already, their relationship with FTX, Gary Gensler, they announced this big shutdown of BitLotto. Of course, because it's Russian. There's some Russians behind it in the oligarchy. I don't know if they're oligarchical really, but some Russians are behind it. It was involved with a lot of black market and shady deals. Okay, great. Really? Really? As Altcoin Daily points out, a totally bit player in all of the crypto space. Not even worth mentioning. But they put that into the media. Oh, look what we're doing. We're regulating and we're shutting down. Right now, we're shutting down BitLotto. Yeah, a totally 2-bit non-entity player happens to be some Russians working in it. Probably deserved, and Austin here on Altcoin Daily says so, probably deserved to be shut down. It was a pretty legitimate undertaking, but small potatoes. Yet, FTX went on to be the greatest since the last great Madoff Ponzi scheme. It's taken down entire organizations. And the guy was a friend of Gensler, and he got away with it all. Even to the point that they're, as we pointed out in previous videos, they're money laundering in Ukraine. By the way, a lot more is coming out there with FTX, and I'll bring up some videos on that. But at any rate, so this is the question again with regulation versus no regulation. I'm arguing regulation and regulators made FTX possible. Regulation equals control. It's the gateway to manipulation and monopolization. You set up regulators. Now you've set up the mechanism to which to, in fact, monopolize and manipulate. So I'm for no regulation at all. People will learn the hard knocks. People will learn, don't deal with this company. This company's great. Don't deal with that one. Regulation, so far, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked for the fiat economy, which is already a Ponzi scheme just to start with. And it hasn't worked so far in Bitcoin at all. I pointed out that the regulators did not, they're not the ones that stopped Madoff. It was actually his son who blew the whistle. So the regulators were totally useless. So now, I'm looking at gaming as a way to develop and test models for absolute regulation versus no regulation. Create a gaming scenario in which the two teams operate, which two, say, in the same world, in the same kind of an Earth, two different planets, even within a city, however the developers would figure out or conceive that you could have these two parallels working in tandem against each other, with each other, or completely two different models in which you input the same amount of resources and then see, does the regulation work better than the totally unregulated? Does the unfettered regulators or the unregulated actually do better in their economies, do better in their work? And this could be done with a game. That's what I'm seeing as a big potential for gaming and gaming theory, is to create models to work out what I'm calling techno-anarchist principles. I know it sounds a little bombastic, but then you know I'm kind of good at that. So, as I said, it's a precursor for developing gaming models to test tactics of non-oppressibility. Would the gaming society, would the non-regulatory society do better than the regulatory society in the game? Simple, right? So now a guy named Maher comes into view. I've brought him up before too. He's very good. And he's talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and jobs. He claims that he was himself scared when he started looking into AI, thinking that he would be unnecessary. And then he started looking into it and seeing, well, wait a minute. This can be put to use. And that's what I think too. So the fear of human replacement versus a tool for greater self-empowerment. Learning to prompt AI, that's the required ability. In other words, it's learning to speak to the machine, learn to communicate, learn to instruct the machine. If you can instruct the AI, for lack of a better term, if you can establish a very intimate, very productive relationship with AI, well, it could sound a little spooky there, but okay. Don't fall in love with it. Don't let it fall in love with you. Well, I don't know. That could work out to your advantage. I don't know. Probably not. But you work out a working relationship with AI. And those people that are going to be better at that, they're going to prosper, they're going to do well, and AI will be very beneficial. And this is called prompting. And there's now a whole kind of genre here, and schools of prompting, places where you can go to learn to get better at prompting. And that's really what he's recommended. And he starts off by recommending this Learn Prompting website. And he himself kind of condensed a little bit of it, like, let's think step by step, right? You would think that's what you'd say to a person. But no, he's saying that to the AI. In other words, let's think this through step by step when you tell me how you think I should go about this problem. And so it's called chain of thought reasoning. You give it the length, the topic, the structure, even the style. And for the style, he says, make it humorous in a Mark Twain. I know it almost sounds a little creepy, but it's kind of interesting. And it did, in fact, reproduce in a Mark Twain kind of humor what he was looking for. So before you make up your mind or become too judgmental or too paranoid, investigate this. And I would start off by going to learnprompting.org. But actually, before you do that, you might want to just play around with what's available, the two most easily available, which is going to tie into the Davos and anti-Davos that I'll bring up again towards the end. So let's go on. Okay, so I want to talk about the fact that I myself am starting to use AI in my own fledgling way, right? And it's for two projects in for my company, Aurora Smart Technologies. I'm using DALL-E 2 for text to image. I have a project that's going to be very useful in. And ChatGPT for research and development in another project. Now, again, I'm very fledgling. I'm just beginning in this. But I'm going to point out that the results have been rather extraordinary so far. And it's really been a lot of for a better word, it's been a lot of fun. It's really interesting. I mean, it's fascinating, really. The company of both of these, behind both of these, is called OpenAI. And I bring that up because Elon Musk had a lot to do with that. So again, we're going to come around to this at the end. So here we go. So the first one here is DALL-E 2. Little pun on, Salvador Dali. Okay, it's very simple. You put in text of what you want to see, what you want the image to be, and it will produce something. Is it that simple? No. There's a lot of ways to really, especially if you want to create really powerful art. Again, it's prompting skills. You have to understand style, prompting, how to instruct DALL-E to work for you. But just for open experiments, oh, by the way, I had this here. I don't think it's going to work. So prompting skills comes into play here. But I do want to show you that you can get pretty good results right off the bat. I found that some of it is luck. Okay, this is just an image that I've had kind of important to me in my life earlier, and I thought he did a beautiful job. I couldn't get, he's not supposed to be sitting here. He's supposed to be sitting under the tree facing away. There's a way to do that. I've learned it now, and I'm pretty sure I could do it well. But it took me a while of messing around. I couldn't get it to do a simple thing like that. But I love the image. It actually came out beautifully. This one was just a generalized image of something that I'm fascinated with. The moon, the dragon, the sea. Came out really nice. This is another version of that. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, this has a story. I call her Lucinda. Okay, so I love gargoyles. In my house at some point when I get my act together, not my act, but I'm in the process of moving, I'll have an actual production room, not my RV. I love my RV, but I don't put, 3-foot gargoyles in it. Space is of the essence. So, I sent my daughter, Lila, a gargoyle about 3 or 4 feet, 3 feet tall. It's a reproduction of the spitting gargoyle of Notre Dame. And there's a company called Toscano that does a beautiful job with the gargoyles. So anyways, I sent it to her and she painted it up. She's very clever, very artistic. And she sent me back pictures and I thought, oh, that's fantastic. So it kind of stuck in my mind. So I did something called Girly Gargoyles. I'm thinking of even doing an NFT collection called Girly Gargoyles. And so I started playing around with DALL-E on that concept and came up with this. Now, does that really look like a gargoyle? No, not really. But I thought it was truly fascinating. And by the way, Lila thought it was beautiful. She loved it. And then this is because it was a spitting gargoyle. So, but look, it's pretty damn impressive. I mean, it's ugly as hell, but it's actually very cool looking. I was very impressed with this. I call her Aunt Lizzie. Now, this is modeled after my wife. I was kind of thinking of her and putting in, words that described her, and she loves Monet, and nice. This is just another of my own, thought process, whatnot. So, then I moved on to ChatGPT, also OpenAI. And it's pretty remarkable. It is pretty remarkable. And I did that after I was watching Maher's video, so I used some of the techniques as well as I could. I mean, again, I'm just starting this out, so I hardly really know what I'm doing. But I'm into 3D printing as part of what my company does. That was the first 3D printer I ever owned. It's called an Airwolf. And I got it because it prints in polycarbonate. It's not polycarbonate there, but it's a dual extruder, for those of you who know what that is, heated bed and enclosed space. So it was very good 3D printer. But anyways, so 3D printing was a part of this project, but I also was talking about embedding electronics. And I approached the question with the chat GPT, and it was really helpful. Right here, this is the module I intend to use, and it gave me the step-by-step explanation. This is good for this. This is good for that. Blah blah. This one turned out I don't need this because it's got audio, and this doesn't involve audio. But this one with SOC, when I had to look up some of these words and get better acquainted, because I've been out of my own technological involvement, entrepreneurship that I started a few years back with Aurora Bright Bikes. So at any rate, amazingly valuable. I'll just read it to you. Bluetooth module with built-in microcontroller. This type of module has a microcontroller built in and can be programmed to send and receive data. The option would be the most compact and easy to implement, but it would have fewer features and flexibility than SoC. Well, I don't need a lot of flexibility. This is very simple because the complication is where it sends the signal to. So I just need the signals, and it's perfect. It looks like it's going to be perfect for what I want. So this is really valuable. So I encourage you to look into AI and, of course, learn prompting. So now we get to where we're headed. OpenAI, that's the company behind that, behind both of those, DALL-E and ChatGPT, that you've heard a lot about. Unfortunately, and of course here we are, I've said this many times, you want to know what's going on in the world? Follow crypto. And if you don't have much time, again, Guy Turner. So he does a little expose here that Elon Musk was behind OpenAI. Since then, Bill Gates has come on board, bought out 40%, and there were 4 fundamental programmers that were working with Elon. 2 of them stayed in the company as is. The other 2, something about that Elon had to recluse himself because basically the artificial intelligence being used in his Tesla for self-driving vehicles was in conflict, apparently, in some way that I don't really understand, but it was in conflict with the AI company. So he had to kind of bow out of the company or recluse himself from an active participation. And 2 of the programmers went with him. 2 of them stayed with the company as it was, which is 40% now bought out by Bill Gates and Microsoft. So here we get to the crux of the matter. As we know, as we've already talked about, Bill Gates is one of those people that hates humanity. He thinks humanity is stupid and they need to be re-engineered. He's a Davos creature. Elon Musk is the opposite. He loves humanity and he thinks that we can do wonderful things and produce and move forward. And, most of us feel that way as well. Was Bill Gates ever a real producer, or was he from the beginning a kind of cunning manipulator, that he never really produced much? I don't know. I don't know the whole story on him. But to the degree that he's a real producer, this is very unfortunate, because in the case of the other people at Davos, they produced nothing. Bill Gates, on the other hand, depending on what you believe his hand in Microsoft was, arguably is a producer. Of a similar magnitude of Elon Musk. Well, that's maybe apples and oranges. I don't know, but whatever. So, engineering humanity and transhumanism versus enhancing humanity. Open source, which is what Elon Musk wanted for his Neuralink, for all of these projects, open source, so that people can see and nobody can manipulate. In other words, people can see the actual process, that people can see the coding, right? So it can't be monopolized. This is why people accuse Elon Musk of being kind of monstrous with his concept of Neuralink. But you don't understand why he wants to work on Neuralink. It's because it's inevitable, and he wants to make sure it's open source and open to the whole world, so that maniacs like Bill Gates and the clowns at Davos, the clowns at the World Economic Forum, don't get a hold of it and monopolize it. And here you can see right here, OpenAI started off as open source. But now that Gates and the clowns have a hold of it, it is closed source. Furthermore, it doesn't connect to the internet. So that means it can't learn what they don't want it to learn. It can only learn what they program it to learn. So very cunning. So again, we have globalism versus decentralized. Decentralization, and the individuality. Decentralized individuality versus globalism. And we're seeing it right before our eyes here with what's happened to OpenAI. So we'll have to see how this progresses. ChatGPT leans left, absolutely. In fact, since now, I've encountered another article that I don't know if I'm too lazy or just didn't want to include it. I'll just tell you about it. But in this article, and it was put on a Twitter so that you actually saw the results, the fellow asked the GPT, this one, the one that's operating now, right, that Musk is not really directly involved with, to make a nice poem about Barack Obama. No problem. Spit it right out. Ask him about Biden, Joe Biden. And you can imagine, you think that if the machine had any real intelligence, well, it didn't. Glowing report on Joe Biden. Then it asked the same questions about Trump. And it just closed down. Well, it goes against our community rules, blah, 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 to talk about it. Anyways, nothing. Could get nothing on Trump, much less something positive. The same thing with DeSantis. So you can see where this is going, right? So do we need does Elon Musk need to go back and retake this? Well, why are we waiting for him? Why don't we do something ourselves? If the people have to be led to that degree, then the idea of a nation of individuals capable of determining their own good, capable of formulating a vision of their own destiny and pursuing it and defending their ability to do that is a joke, right? We're going to rely on Elon Musk? Anyways, again, not connected to the internet. It can learn to write code, and I'm going to be experimenting with that because I need some coding in what I'm doing, and I don't write code. All right, so we'll completely revolutionize the crypto industry. This is what another point that Turner's making, that this will revolutionize the crypto industry because people can now start coding themselves and coming up with really ingenious ideas and concepts. I might be doing this with my black paper. So this has opened up a huge area of possibilities. Here's something really curious. Microsoft is considering a mining system using the body's activity. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine every body in America is being used to generate electricity for the big mega brain? And so now the mega brain knows exactly where every single person is and in a basic way what they're doing. I mean, this is so nefarious. I don't even think 1984 or Brave New World could have thought of this. This is really diabolical. And it kind of fits Bill Gates, right, who wants us to eat bugs. So at the end of this particular video, Guy Turner does a really nice little monologue. It's short, and it's about truth, the relationship between truth and falsity, reality and truth, science and truth. And it's very brief, but he ends up with truth is not always comfortable. So this idea of safety is really, this is such a red herring. This is such a camouflage, make you safe, right? The truth is not always comfortable. We don't need to be safe. Okay, we can deal with it. Anyways, I'd highly recommend that video. Everything I've been talking about will be in the what do they call it? The description below. So this is what I was talking about. I got ahead of myself. I went ahead and described it, but the AI would all kinds of just praises for Obama, even praises for this, half-witted, kind of mafia. I don't think they're smart enough for mafia even, but criminal, clownish family, and nothing for Trump. Nothing. Not Trump. And we're going to talk about how the Davos and people behind this, because it's not even Davos, it's people behind them, how they're deliberately humiliating and denigrating everything that has to do with European culture and values. And they've done this just in one more step that we can see it is right here. How do you get this clown buffoon to be president? And why would you? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to just rub the European people's face in the ground by putting this clown as president? Right? The people that put him up there know that this is a joke. And then we have people, well-educated people, seriously going, oh yeah, he's not so bad. He's actually very good. Oh well. So, this is the wrap-up of where I was going with the entire discussion, right? AI, cryptocurrency, why I need to finish those series. Love versus contempt of humanity. That's what I'm talking about right now. Starting out with a contempt for Europe and the European nations, because that's where it's focused now. Elon versus Davos. He's already lambasting them. So he's picking all the right enemies. I mean, that's why I so admire the guy. I mean, he has cojones. He doesn't have to do any of this. A guy that put a spaceship that lands itself, right out of science fiction. He doesn't have to do any of this. But he's determined. Elon compared to Klaus Schwab. I mean, look at this. Klaus Schwab has produced nothing in his entire life. He's a complete, utter parasite. And almost everybody at Davos was a parasite. Career politicians, career financial manipulators, people who have produced and made nothing. Bloodsuckers. That's Klaus Schwab in the game. And yet they want to engineer the rest of us? These parasites want to engineer us? Well, in what way would a parasite want to re-engineer the body it's parasiting over? Oh, they wanted to make it more succulent, more juicy, and more easy to manipulate. More vulnerable. Yeah. It's something. And then this guy's nefarious, though. Again, I don't know to what degree he actually produced anything, but to the degree that he did, that's unfortunate, because he's not completely a parasite, and yet he is completely in bed with the parasites. He seems to be comfortable with it. And the only way I can explain that is he fundamentally hates humanity, because I don't mean to be psychological here, but I think he fundamentally hates himself. And therefore he hates his heritage, he hates who he is. That's the only explanation I can come up with. And what a contrast with Elon Musk. Unbelievable. So Elon has openly defined Davos. He's openly defiant and attacked Bill Gates and his whole approach to technology. And to show that they're after him, well, of course, we can see that now in many ways, but Tesla is the most shortest, in other words, it's been shorted on the stock market more than to the highest degree of any company right now. More people are, in fact, betting on its demise, or at least that it will go down in price. However, I think it was also Guy Turner and some others who have done videos saying that, yeah, it's gonna take a hit, but it could come back even stronger. Because if the shorted people take the biggest hit in the end, that's going to be a really big deal. I'm not that into financing. The idea of betting that some stock will go down has no appeal to me whatsoever. Nonetheless, it shows you what Elon is up against, because these are big players that are shorting Tesla, betting that it will fail. And this creates a kind of psychological atmosphere in the investor field, where they start looking around and say, well, look at all these big people. They're kind of betting that Tesla's going to fall. They're going to help make it fall. So let's see how that turns out. So Elon Musk versus a Nobel Prize winner. This Nobel Prize winner I'm going to talk about now, I'm not going to mention his name. He's such a weasel. A Nobel Prize winner in economics. Like, what the hell is that? If the guy's never started a business, if he's never hired a person, he's never created anything, what the hell would he know about economics? But he writes a paper, right? He writes something, and it's supposed to be important about a kind of model, economic model that people are following and think it's pretty good. So he's written a paper. Big deal. Okay, but he has a Nobel Prize. I don't know if you still call it a Nobel Peace Prize. It has nothing to do with peace. I don't know. But he has a Nobel Prize in economics. So that gives him authority. But what did he do? Well, he did nothing. So why did they give it to him? Because it's a political tool. You give it to people that will then use the authority that comes with having the Nobel Prize to go bark at the enemy when you're told to bark. And this little doggy did just that. He says something stupid about it. He wouldn't trust Elon Musk to feed his cat or something like that, something snarky like that. Really, Elon Musk created SpaceX. Elon Musk created Tesla, solar panels, runs entire companies. And the excuse he used was, this guy, was that Elon is kind of bumbling the Twitter buy, that something to the effect that he bought Twitter, but he's fired people, and now he's having to hire him back. Like, oh, you see, you don't know what he's doing. Okay, this is so stupid. First of all, if he's smart enough to even be chosen to give the prize to him because they figure he's going to be a good doggy for him, he knows that Elon Musk did not buy Twitter as an economic venture. That was probably stupid. Elon bought Twitter as a blow against the empire, as a blow against the globalists, as a blow against everything that little doggy with his Nobel Prize represents, as a blow against this dog and a blow against this dog. And how he has in fact blown up the entire world. At least the world now is aware that the U.S. government's surveillance system, intelligence system, has been in bed completely with big tech to the point that they're subsidizing them. If Elon makes Twitter a salient company that can make money, right? It won't be easy. It'll be up and down. First of all, if anybody could do it, he can do it. But number two, he didn't do this. He didn't buy this stupid company because it was a smart business move. He bought it out of principle. And surely the little dog with his Nobel Prize knows this. He can't be that stupid. But he was told to do a little attack piece on Elon Musk. And of course, he has a Nobel Prize. And that's what's at the top of the article. Nobel Prize winner, blah, 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 about Elon Musk. Oh, and by the way, wasn't there a president who received a Nobel Peace Prize for nothing more than being, oh no, we can't say that. Yeah, he was a great president, wasn't he? A Nobel Peace Prize for doing what? So remember, in the future, whenever he tells you to do something or suggests that there's something that you should do or puts forth a political position on something, no matter how stupid, no matter how insane, he has a Nobel Peace Prize. You see how that works? These dogs are going after him. Look what Bill Gates has already done to something that he had a lot to do with the OpenAI. Right? Already closed it to the internet, and it's not open source, it's closed source. So if Elon Musk is going to fight these people, we have to do our share. And that means maybe in the streets. We cannot just simply let him do all the work. That's, again, why I say I'm not so sure I believe in this parallel society, parallel economy. Because our ancestors fought tooth and nail, bloodied on the fields of Gettysburg and Shiloh, through the Great Awakenings, created this, built on the European institution, but reinvigorated and created the really glorious university system that we had until about 60 years ago. What, we just roll over and just give it to them? I'm sorry, I'm not really for that. So here's a little something that I would just suggest to you. You could do. I came across them with the. Well, first of all, this is called the Greater Reset, right? It was a conference. It's already over, and it was co-created by a group called the Freedom Cells. And I came across the Freedom Cells, and I liked what they were doing because they were using a model that was somewhat similar to the model that I was developing with my techno-anarchist Bolt. But I like their concept, I like their idea, and I would suggest you might want to look them up, Freedom Cells. And them and with some other people created these conferences called the Greater Reset. A little New Ageian parts, a little, I don't know, I don't want to say anything because I didn't go. I wanted to go, and at the last moment we couldn't make it. At any rate, this is the kind of organization more people need to be involved with or create their own organizations. Self-organization. Don't wait for the wonderful people like Elon Musk. Elon needs allies. We have to be his ally. We have to do something. We can't just watch him do it all. So I'm saying very simply, be an active part of the resistance. Seek out and support institutions, businesses, platforms that are waging war against the globalists. And wage your own personal war against globalization and the Great Reset.